This is Wonder Frame, where we frame the world's biggest mysteries.
In 1457, a pig was arrested, given a lawyer, and put on trial for murder. This is not a fairy tale. We have the court records, and the story gets stranger from here. For hundreds of years across medieval Europe, animals were regularly dragged into courtrooms, given fair trials, and sentenced by real judges. Pigs, bulls, roosters, rats, and even locusts all faced justice. One lawyer famously defended a colony of rats in a real French courtroom. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why, and it will completely change how you see the medieval world. Think of the entire medieval justice system like a grand theater. Every town had a stage, actors, an audience, and a script. The play had clear roles: a villain, a court of heroes, and a watching community. And sometimes, the villain had 4 legs. This theater metaphor will explain everything. Hold on to it, because we're about to follow one pig from her muddy pen all the way to the courtroom. Savigny, France, 1457. A sow, that's a female pig, was roaming freely through the village. As animals commonly did in medieval times, there were no fences keeping animals off the streets. Pigs were everywhere. They were basically the garbage collectors of the medieval village. That's why pigs were the most common animals to face trial. They were large, they wandered into homes, and tragically, young children were often left unattended. When this sow attacked a 5-year-old child, the village did not simply chase her away. They called the law. The sow was formally arrested. Not chased off, not killed on the spot. Arrested, like any accused criminal, and locked in the village jail. Her 6 piglets were arrested too, as suspected accomplices. Yes, really. All 7 of them were waiting in a medieval jail for their day in court. And here's an almost unbelievable detail. The owner of the pig had to pay for her food and lodging while she was imprisoned. Jail fees for a pig. The trial opened with real judges, real witnesses called to testify, and a proper reading of the charges. The whole theater was in motion. Evidence was presented. Witnesses described what they saw. This was not a mob with torches. This was a structured legal proceeding. Historian Esther Cohen, who wrote an entire book on medieval French law, argues these trials weren't superstition gone wrong. They were the law working exactly as designed. The medieval world believed that everything, humans, animals, even weather, existed in one single divinely ordered system. When an animal committed a violent act, it ripped a hole in that order. The trial was how the community sewed the hole back shut. The play had to reach its final act. The curtain could not fall until the verdict was delivered, and the verdict in Savigny was guilty. The sow was sentenced to death. But then the judge turned to the 6 piglets, and this is where the story takes its most surprising turn. The 6 piglets were also charged as accomplices. Were they at the scene? Yes. Were they covered in blood? Yes. Open and shut case, right? Not quite. The judge acquitted all 6 piglets. Acquitted means they were found not guilty and released. The reasoning? They were too young to know right from wrong. And there was no solid proof they had personally participated in the attack. The court gave them the benefit of the doubt. Let that sink in. A medieval court applied a concept we still use today. You need proof beyond reasonable doubt, and youth matters in sentencing. The creator of this video mentioned the piglets were acquitted due to their mother's bad influence, and actually, that reasoning appears in some historical accounts too. Some records suggest the piglets were seen as corrupted by their upbringing, rather than born wicked. Sound familiar? Medieval courts were thinking about nature versus nurture. Now pause for a moment. Before we go further, who do you think was the strangest animal ever put on trial? Drop your guess in the comments right now. Because the answer might not be a mammal at all. In 1474, in Basel, Switzerland, a rooster was put on trial and burned at the stake.
His crime? Laying an egg, which roosters are not supposed to do. Medieval people believed a rooster's egg would hatch a cockatrice, a mythical monster. Yes, a court held a formal trial over a biological anomaly because it feared the supernatural consequences. The theater demanded a villain, and the rooster got the role. Now let's talk about the most brilliantly absurd courtroom moment in this entire history. A lawyer defending rats in France in the 1500s. His name was Bartholomew Chassenet, a real French lawyer who was appointed by the court to defend a group of rats accused of destroying barley crops. When the rats failed to show up for their court date, the judge was furious. Chassenet stood up calmly and made his argument. He argued that his clients, the rats, could not safely travel to court because of the cats waiting to eat them along the road. The journey was unreasonably dangerous. The court accepted the argument. The rats got an extension. Chassenet won the point, and he went on to become one of the most celebrated lawyers in France. that career-building case on the back of defending absent rats. Truly, the law works in mysterious ways. Not all animal trials ended in death sentences. In 1750 in Vanves, France, a donkey was actually acquitted of all charges against her. The villagers came forward and testified to the donkey's excellent character. They literally told the court she was, in their words, a most honest creature in word and deed. The court reviewed the evidence and agreed the donkey was innocent. Her reputation had been her shield. The theater needed a hero, and the village made her one. Now here is the counterintuitive twist at the heart of this whole story. These trials were never really about the animals. Historian E.P. Evans spent years compiling cases and published his findings in 1906. He found that these trials served one core function, restoring the community's sense of moral order. When tragedy struck, people needed three things: an explanation, a clear villain, and a resolution. The animal trial delivered all three on a public stage. The punishment was just as public. In Falaise, France, in 1386, a pig was not only executed, but dressed in human clothing first. The records even show payment to the executioner, and this is a real detail, for a brand new pair of gloves for him to wear during the execution. Very official. The Falaise execution was considered so important that a fresco, that's a painting directly on a plaster wall, was painted inside the local church to commemorate it. That painting stayed on the church wall for over 400 years before being painted over in the 1800s. 4 centuries of a pig in a jacket on a church wall. Lawyer Sadakat Kadri, who wrote a full history of the trial, points out something fascinating. The urge to put something on trial, anything, runs very deep in human nature. He found records of inanimate objects being put on trial too. An axe that accidentally killed someone, a statue that fell on a man, objects on trial in a real court. The point is, a trial turns chaos into story. It gives tragedy a shape with a beginning, a middle, and an end. That need hasn't changed at all. But there were 2 types of courts. Secular courts, that means non-religious courts, handled crimes against people. Animals that hurt humans went there. Ecclesiastical courts, church courts, handled crimes against property. Rats eating grain or locusts destroying fields went to the church court and could be excommunicated. Excommunication meant being officially cast out of the church, and in medieval belief, out of God's protection. That was considered a severe punishment, even for a locust. England, interestingly, almost never put animals on trial at all. English law focused on the owner's responsibility rather than the animal's guilt. In fact, in a 1499 case in Chartres, France, the parents of a child killed by a pig were fined, not for the pig's crime, but for their own negligence in not supervising their child. Even in a world of pig trials, there was room for debate about who truly bore responsibility. The medieval legal system was more nuanced than most people assume. And these trials weren't chaotic mob decisions. Authorities insisted on proper legal procedure precisely because it showed the law, not the crowd, was in control. That distinction mattered enormously. The theater had rules. Improvisation was not welcome. Everyone had their lines, and the script had to be followed. So here is the modern mirror. We don't put pigs in courtrooms today, but when a dog attacks someone, a formal hearing is often held to determine if the dog is a danger. That process echoes the same medieval desire: restore order, assess responsibility, and give the community a clear resolution. The stage is smaller, but the play is the same. And we have laws against animal cruelty, laws that say animals deserve protection. That is a completely different idea from medieval law, which held animals responsible. Our relationship with animals in the law has flipped entirely. They went from standing in the dock to being shielded by it. History moves in surprising directions. Let's lock in the 3 things you'll actually remember from this story. 1. Animal trials were real, formal, and legally serious, not mob chaos. 2. They weren't about punishing animals. They were about restoring the community's sense of order after tragedy tore a hole in the world. 3. The piglets of Savigny were acquitted because of insufficient proof and their youth, concepts we still use in courtrooms right now, today. In 1457, a sow in Savigny, France was arrested, tried, and found guilty of murder. Her 6 piglets were released, but wildered and free, and the play finally ended, the curtain fell, and the village breathed again, which it turns out was the whole point. If you liked this one, go watch our video, What Made an Entire Town Dance Until They Dropped, next. It's just as bizarre, and every word of it is true. Thanks for wondering with Wonderframe. Tap subscribe, and we'll see you in the next story.